There are things about street photography that I wish I had known 20 years ago, when I was in my early 20s. This was the time I bought my first camera and started street photography, although it was 10 years before I was introduced to the term street photography. A lot of things would probably have been easier then with today's experience, and I wouldn't have put the camera aside several times and turned to other things, which were from today's point of view less meaningful to me. To help you avoid this, I've prepared this video with the most important things I've learned over the last 20 years of my photographic journey. Let's dive straight in. Please make the following experiment. Challenge yourself to do street portraits of strangers. Set yourself the goal to get 5 no's from strangers you want to photograph. You won't believe it, but to get that many rejections is nearly impossible, even on a whole day of shooting from my experience. Asking people for portraits also helps you to interact with people you're shooting candidly in a better way. My theory is people out there are nicer than you think. They are just like you. They have good days and they have bad days. And if they have a bad day, it has nothing to do with you. Since my early 20s, I was very passionate about photography. On the street and generally outside, according to strict standards, what I did would probably not be called street photography. I photographed walls of houses with graffiti because I had just moved to exciting wild Berlin, and I shot people from behind on the street, you guessed it, also in front of walls with graffiti, and houses and flowers and my girlfriend at the time. Back then I didn't have the courage to photograph people up front or even approach them. That probably had something to do with my young age, an age when you think a lot about what others might think about you. To be able to take better photos, I enrolled in a photography school to learn that no one here, really no one, could show me how to lose my fear of photographing people. The photography school helped me a lot to compose better and to develop a feeling for serial work, but walls and people from behind remained my main motives, perhaps from then on, well, a little better composed. I only lost my fear of photographing people openly on the street when I photographed a lot abroad, especially in Asia, where people often have a much more positive attitude towards photographers than here in Europe. Above all, however, it helped that I got to know more and more street photographers via Instagram mainly, with whom I went out in Berlin for photo walks. I saw that they were able to photograph people without any problems and that the reactions were mostly positive. So I also became braver and made many candid shots from then on. I realized that it was important to clearly show that you aren't a weird freak with a camera. Smiling and being kind is extremely important. That got easier with my growing self-esteem and age. I also found out that it was a great help to make things easier on the street, to tell people why you were taking the photo when they asked or when they saw you taking the shot. Something like, "It was a great light," or "I loved your hat," was usually enough to make them happy. The positive reactions to my photography, both on the street and at exhibitions or on Instagram, showed me that I was becoming better from day to day. There are still days when I don't manage taking photos of people. I call them the shy days. And I think that if that's the case for you too, you should accept these days and look at a photo book or go to a photo exhibition instead. But on days when you're feeling open and full of energy, you should take advantage of this and take as many photos of random people as possible just to practice. You will see people are nicer than you think, and you are a better photographer than you think. Sometimes people ask me, hey, I don't have a camera and I like to do street photography. How much do I need to spend on a camera? I don't think you need more than a smartphone or an older camera for 200 to 300 euros or dollars maximum to get started. By the way, I'll be making a video about a fantastic street photography camera in this price range very soon. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss it. Let me tell you my camera story. I started 20 years ago with a Canon 50E, but always thought that my photos would be much better if I only had a medium format camera. When I bought one, I realized that it was not at all suitable for street photography and went back to using my good old Canon 50E. If you set the hurdles too high, for example, if you decide that you can only start taking photos when you have saved up 2,000 or 3,000 euros or dollars for a particular lens, then you will be disappointed if the photos are not what you imagined at the beginning, most likely. So work with what you have. Most Samsung or iPhones already take great photos. And the best thing about a phone is that you always have it with you. So you can practice composition, exposure, and the right moment for a photo. And if you spend money on a real camera, you're not starting from scratch. So just start taking photos with what you have. When I started photography, I only shot in program mode. I couldn't deal with bright sunshine and photography at nighttime. To me, for no obvious reason at that time, the photos were strangely underexposed in the sun and strangely overexposed at night. Then I slowly got to know the manual settings of a camera. Sunny Rule 16 for photos with deep shadows and beautiful contrasty highlights became my favorite. So for years I only took photos on late afternoons and only on sunny days, which is a problem, especially in winter, because here in Germany the sun comes out maybe one time a week in winter, and if you don't have time on that certain day, you're out of luck. So my advice for you is to think about what kind of street photography you want to and can do in what kind of weather. For example, cloudy days are great for street portraits or experimenting with layering, which means creating photos with different scenes and people in the foreground, middle ground, and background. On rainy days, there are numerous possibilities for composition through windows or other reflective surfaces with raindrops, people with umbrellas, or people jumping through puddles. Yes, that's cliché, but it's really fun. On sunny days in the morning, there is time for light and shadow. On sunny days, midday is the best light for reflections, and in the afternoon, light and shadow again. When it gets darker, you most probably need a strong lens then. Just write a memo in your phone about what type of street photos you can take in what weather and what time of day. That way, if you have time for a photo tour, you won't have to think twice and can ensure to have the right equipment with you. There are discussions where some folks seriously argue about what is street photography and what is not. That street photography is only with people and that only unposed and candid photos are real photos. What would Elliot Erwitt with his dog portrait say about this, for example? Or William Eggleston with his photos of completely empty roads? Just photograph what has meaning for you and not what's trendy on Instagram or what's being sold to you at a photography school as academic photography. If you want to photograph your garden, do that. If you want to take a portrait of your dog, do that. You'll only get really good if you enjoy what you do. Get inspiration from photographers you like and find the triggers that make you want to press the shutter. Then go in search of these triggers at each of your photo walks and work on series. After 2 or 3 years, you might even have material for a great exhibition or a fantastic photo book. And it doesn't matter whether it's real street photography or not. The main thing is that it feels right and authentic to you. So, what would you tell your younger photographer self? I look forward to your comments. Happy shooting and see you in the next video. Yours, Oliver.